Hello, good people. If you've come this far, you've hit play, and you're about to have one of the greatest experience of listening to a podcast, because that's what podcasts are supposed to be, right? So, MK marks the spot. It's about General Lieutenant Mkhwanazi, who, as a South African top cop, made revelations about corruption and criminal activity in the institution itself, blowing the lid on this. And there are so many media narratives, so much is said about this in public. And we, as a platform where we unpack narratives, where we unpack texts, we do this analysis for you. But it's a listening experience, as I've said. So put on your earphones and hang out with us and listen to the story.
So basically, this is a script. And I must, what? Communicate this to the public? Really? Okay, fine. This job sometimes, honestly. What am I supposed to do with this mess, huh? No, Francis, right in the middle of another scandal, encore. As if we don't have enough chaos already. Political, social, diplomatic. And me? I must make sense of it. Of course there will be conspiracy theories. All these stories about intelligence services, and somehow I'm the one who must present it. Exit, clean it.
South Africa's ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa, has died in Paris. The former Minister of Police was reported missing after his security could not find him.
A police investigation is underway after the South African ambassador to France was found dead in Paris. 58-year-old Nathi Mthethwa had reserved a room on the 22nd floor.
Nathi Mthethwa, our ambassador to France, dying, and it's understood he fell to his death from the 22nd floor of the Hyatt Hotel in Paris.
Mthethwa has served in various capacities in government, including as police minister between May 2009 and May 2014.
Absolutely, Iman. I mean, and just within the last few minutes, a member of the French public walking past me here asked me who I was reporting for, and I explained it was for Newsroom Africa, and he understood that it was all about the death of the ambassador, and he said to me, it's very suspicious.
Who's going to believe this so-called official story, huh? After what happened in 2004 with that other diplomat from Central African Republic, please. There was a script then too. I remember. Same tone, same denials. And no, South African will never buy this one. Not after Dulce September. She was murdered here, on her soil. And that Open Secrets podcast, huh? They even said it was coordinated between us and their own security people. Can you imagine?
My name is Mathibedi. How do you feel about Mkhwanazi's allegations regarding the police corruption?
I feel that I am disillusioned. I don't know what's going on. There's confusion, there's chaos, but in between all of that, there's also been murders, so it's a big problem for me. Yeah.
I was listening in the radio now, they say Malema is linked to such Shadrach Spear. And during the parliamentary that session, this beer, Malema was not there. We can't tap next because we are still waiting for stage capture result. We never get it. Need to investigate. After investigation, then we'll know. Yeah.
Maybe the public is too busy with the bigger drama, the organized crime stories, the corruption, the endless headlines. Maybe this little scandal will just slip away.
Police corruptions. You want me
to end up in jail.
No, ma'am, I would not like for that to happen.
Because if I answer, I'm going to jail.
No, you won't.
I think it's bad that law enforcement, people that are supposed to help you and save you, are corrupt.
It's things that are there. It's just horrible. These people, they need to be locked up.
Ngathi ku-right akwenzayo but kunobungozi phakathi ngoba I'm sure uma ekhipha lamafayila nje baningi abantu abazoba-exposed and of which vele government is corrupt and everyone. That means lie is also corrupt because you can't keep a secret for this long and just expose everyone once.
It's time that somebody stands up for the South Africans. They must make him president.
Why do you say so, ma'am?
Because then all the nonsense that's happening in South Africa will stop.
But Ayayi, that officer, that former minister, they don't make it easier, no. They bring all the eyes back on us. Again.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, people will say Mkhwanazi is very insensitive, but when we talk the honest truth, we must tell the truth. The country is in mourning because we lost one of our ambassador in France. But then ambassador was a minister of police. As you switch on the television and you watch the homestead of the former minister of police, you're going to see a very big wall, perimeter wall, that was built by the money from crime intelligence.
South Africans, ni Sodoma, ni Gomorrah.
And then boom, the speculation starts. The podcasters, the armchair experts, all trying to uncover the truth. They have no idea. None. The thinking behind it all, they say.
It's showtime. Hello, good people. Welcome to TTBIA, the thinking behind it all. This is where we decode and break down media text, searching for hidden messages and underlying meanings. We ask critical questions. Who is the author targeting? What makes us receptive or skeptical of the news? And when the occasion calls for it, we separate fact from fiction. We do this to become more responsible, informed news consumers, and in turn, better activists in our own spaces.
On the front pages with your host Melusi Ncala.
The phrase completely different worlds took on a whole new meaning for me in July 2025. Not only did it mark the start of the second half of the year, but it also kicked off a radically new news cycle in South Africa. The first 6 months had focused on US-South Africa relations and global events after Trump became the 47th inaugurated president of the United States of America. By the first week of July, the spotlight shifted to a story rooted right at home. I, a township bloke, thought I could show a good friend some love with an image from SW19. I texted him a photo of myself at the most famous tennis grounds during the oldest tournament played on grass. I'm a nice guy. I'm sure you agree. That's what friends do, right? He was in Johannesburg, and his response? A whole center court, my brother? I am so jealous. Then he goes on to say, that time, here at home, we are recovering from a one-of-a-kind press briefing from KZN Provincial Commissioner General Mkhwanazi. At first, I skimmed it, thinking probably another fatal shooting involving the top cop. After all, General LT Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and his team had a reputation for sparing no ammo when it came to suspects of violent crimes.
Now, 4 suspected criminals who were wanted for a spate of murders in Inanda were killed during a shootout with police on the M4 highway in Umlazi, south of Durban
Three
last
suspects
night.
wanted for at least 10 cases of murder were killed in a shootout with police in KwaZulu-Natal. It's understood that the latest gun battle took place in the early hours of this morning.
On Sunday night, just before midnight, police received intelligence that there were an unconfirmed number of suspects who were traveling in 2 vehicles and were planning to commit business robbery in KwaMashu.
Later, in the quiet of my room, I understood what my friend meant.
All right, thank you so much for availing yourself here on a Sunday morning. I hope you're all feeling good after the whole events that happened in Durban yesterday. You did not enjoy yourself too much.
Well, if everyone was good, then certainly they weren't, at least considering what came next.
I'm here this morning in order to speak to you about the policing issues that are happening in KZN as well as in the Republic of South Africa. So I'm presenting this briefing to the citizens of this province and by extension, the inhabitants of the Republic of South Africa.
Policing issues, he said. First an irony, now an understatement. Looking back, I wonder whether these speech choices were deliberately choreographed by his communication team. Anyway, let's see how the briefing was covered. Daily Maverick ran a video captioned, "Inside Mkhwanazi's explosive claim. South Africa held hostage by criminal cartel."
On the 6th of July 2025, KwaZulu-Natal's Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, alleged that a criminal syndicate involving cops, prison staff, judges, and politicians is holding South Africa hostage. Hi, I'm Karyn and I'm an author and journalist at Daily Maverick. Mkhwanazi made several other astounding accusations. He alleged that a drug cartel, headquartered in Gauteng, with ties to South America and other countries, is ultimately controlling the state-saturated criminal syndicate.
Newsroom Africa jumped right on it with the headline, "Mkhwanazi comes out guns blazing."
Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has slammed the disbanding of the task team investigating political killings. He alleges that the unit was dissolved under dubious circumstances, with instructions coming from the police minister.
The editorial decision was to chase clicks with a tabloid-like title, despite the country being abuzz with the KZN provincial head's revelations. In fairness, perhaps they were inspired by the visuals of General Mkhwanazi wearing fatigues and flanked by armed officers. Maybe subliminally, that was the story. Yeah, maybe that, and not the figurative shots fired. International attention followed. Al Jazeera headlined one of its online pieces, "Lives controlled by crime. Explosive allegations hit South African police." Note the split. The first part is a direct quote highlighting an essential detail from the briefing. The word explosive in the rest of the headline signals their editorial take, guiding the audience's interpretation. The Associated Press went political. Top South African official accuses police minister of colluding with crime syndicate. Sketchy and vague. What image does top official conjure? A man in fatigues on the ground involved in tactical operations? Keep it simple. Police, cop, or officer would suffice. Reuters focused on the president's response as it reported on further developments. South Africa's Ramaphosa removes police minister over criminal-linked allegations. And this line in the body of the text made me chuckle. Ramaphosa, whose rise to the highest office was built on promises to fight corruption, has been under pressure to act swiftly as political parties and citizens said the allegations called into question the integrity of the criminal justice system. Rest assured, the leave of absence, complete with a cushy salary for Senzo Mkhwanazi, wasn't the only swift action.
To address these allegations and the implications of these allegations, I'm establishing a judicial commission of inquiry that will be chaired by Acting Deputy Chief Justice Mbuyisile Madlanga. Justice Madlanga will be assisted by Advocate Sesi Baloyi, Senior Counsel, and Advocate Sandile Khumalo, Senior Counsel. The commission will investigate allegations relating to the infiltration of law enforcement, intelligence, and associated institutions within the criminal justice system by criminal syndicates.
By late August, Eyewitness News wrote about the final institutional touch-ups. The headline, Mkhwanazi first to appear before Parliament Committee probing allegations of police graft. This ad hoc committee was set up after allegations surfaced that Senzo Mkhwanazi and others abused their positions to protect criminals involved in organized crime, murders, and drug trafficking while obstructing investigations. Yet the article did not explain the committee's objectives, since its purpose was to tell readers that Parliament adopted the terms of reference. A quick note could have clarified that the ad hoc committee aims to mainly investigate the veracity, extent, and implications of the allegations, and explain whether institutional, policy, or legislative reform is required. Meanwhile, audiences were hooked. Traditional media, social media, blogs, podcasts. This was shaping up as entertainment.
Why would he choose the route of coming out completely in public, accuse the minister, accuse Sibia, literally call him a criminal?
Well, I don't speak to the general, so...
we're
really
speculating all of us. In this case, we're all analyzing.
General Sibia, thank you very much indeed for your time. Let me first get your reaction to a slew of allegations that have been made against you, and in fact, you've been labelled as a criminal.
First and foremost, I must say that I'm very much disappointed and shocked.
In this crisis, General Mkhwanazi will either be dismissed or he'll become the commissioner. Because South Africa has to choose. What he's done is that he's created such an unprecedented crisis.
I just want to make one simple point, if you don't mind.
Welcome, Honorable Malem.
Thank you. I think we must make one point very clear, that we're not going to be told by Mkhwanazi what must happen, what must not happen. If we are looking for him, we have to find him. And if he's not going to make himself available, we're going to have to summon him. He's the one who started this mess.
This story is massive. When we look back at the second half of 2025, it dominates. Narratives pulled in different directions though. Some condemned Mkhwanazi, questioning his withholding of evidence, including withdrawing some claims via SMS and making scathing remarks about some journalists. Others praised him as a whistleblower and policing hero. There's more to unpack, but for now, those are the highlights. Our job is to analyze the texts, contextualize the news event, and provide critical commentary.
The Stars with Nyide.
Hey, it's your girl Ledstar, aka Nyide. You know what's up. Mzansi's entertainment industry stays messy, and your girl is gonna keep y'all updated on some of the latest tea about your faves, so you can think a little bit more about who you follow. But today, we're spilling a different kind of tea. Not who's dating who, but who's really shaping the national conversation. So you've probably seen it. Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has been trending ever since he called out corruption in the police and political circles. It's bold, it's messy, and it's got everyone talking, including our celebs. Let's start with the ones who spoke up. Lerato the Voice, queen of Speak Your Truth energy, went live saying, when a man in uniform tells the truth, y'all call it drama. But when he keeps quiet, y'all call him corrupt. 600,000 views later, the comments were split. Some cheering her on, others saying, sis, don't stand cops too fast. Then, Prince Kamu jumped in saying, SA loves heroes until they make us uncomfortable. Deep line, but fans came for him anyway. One said, bro just wants to sound woke. Another, at least he's saying what others won't. The debate, unstoppable. And then things got a little bit muted. For instance, DJ Sboo's feed recently leaned into weekend vibes, brunch shots, and motivational brand posts. Interesting. Are they no more ANC gigs? And Lerato Ngumalo, travel reels, fashion collabs, wellness posts, right when the timeline was alive with serious talk. It's almost like when the topic gets heavy, some people shift the narrative with school-friendly content instead. Not shade, just noticing how the vibe changes when the national conversation changes. Bonang dropped that cryptic Insta story. Courage doesn't need a microphone. Fans were decoding like it was a dissertation. Is she backing the general or throwing shade? Nobody knows. But one thing about Queen Bee, she knows how to move the timeline without even saying a name. And then Casper tweeted, real ones don't fear being alone on the right side of history. Same story, no context, just chaos. Some said it was about Mkhwanazi, others said promo tactics. Either way, he got the engagement. Here's the thing, whether they speak up, play it subtle, or change their feed's rhythm, it all sends a message. Our celebs aren't just entertainers anymore. They shape how we think. They post set the tone, what they don't post sets the mood, and their followers move accordingly. Now, timelines look like parliament debates, threads, think pieces in the comments. One person's opinion becomes a movement, and suddenly the conversation shifts. That's how much influence these stars have. So maybe this isn't just about Mkhwanazi or corruption. Maybe it's about us, about who we trust, who we follow, and why we let influencers decide who's a hero or a villain. So, to go back to what I said in the beginning, think a little bit more about who you follow.
What's the Word? An opinion with our guest speaker.
I am Dr. Mpho Matlala from the University of South Africa in the College of Law from the School of Criminal Justice. I'm a senior lecturer in policing and I am a law enforcement and crime expert.
Doctor, how would you describe the media narratives relating to revelations of corruption in South Africa's criminal justice system?
From the 6th of July, when General Mkhwanazi made that media briefing, those revelations were explosive and scary. And for me, they shook the very foundations of our security as a country. The weaknesses were laid bare in the public to say those that are tasked with our safety and security, those that are tasked with protecting us, have really been in cahoots with those that are endangering our security as a country or as ordinary citizens.
In what consistent or varying ways has General Mkhwanazi been portrayed before and after the media briefing of July?
I think before the briefing, General Mkhwanazi was very active in the media, in particular, and I wouldn't say mass media, because mass media is broad. It will also include social media, but I'll come to that. I think he has been very active in media, communicating with the nation in terms of the progress and the successes of policing, particularly within the KZN province, in his capacity as a provincial commissioner. And I think the entire country has become aware that this is a hard-working police official who has vowed to take on criminals head on. That is also something that he expressed openly when he was acting national commissioner. I stand to be corrected, around 2011 or so. He has been that character that is shown to have firm hand in terms of fighting criminality. But post the 6th of July press briefing, I would say probably in the media, this would have been a big story to run with, but for investigative journalism in particular, it was like, yes, this is the type of information that we've been looking for and we could not get hold of because for various reasons, either one, the matter is still under investigation, or two, the matter is sub judice in court in the trial process, or really the information is classified and no one can get to it and the police cannot reveal that kind of information for various reasons. And that would have really impeded the role of journalism to hold arms of the executive authority, such as the police, accountable and ensure transparency in an open and democratic society. But within the public space itself, I'm sure there would have been mixed reactions. Some would have seen General Mkhwanazi as a hero or as a savior. And some would even go as far as reckless and grandstanding, or he's a careerist. Correctly or incorrectly so, my view is that the rod within the criminal justice system, somebody had to go out there and expose it.
Would you say there are differences or similarities in how news media discusses the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Commissioner versus how members of the public talk about him?
The role of media is really to hold state departments accountable and promote transparency and uncover the injustices and human rights abuses and also spotlight on service delivery. I think the nuances are not properly discussed for lack of empirical evidence or information that is protected. For some reason also, the police are very distrustful of somebody outside of their organization. But a lot of people in the public space really see the media coverage aspect as bringing out that element of transparency and holding the police to account within the context of an open and democratic society. Of course, there are those that I've described who will say General Mkhwanazi would then have been reckless and grandstanding, but then the view would then change to say, yeah, but then he is also being assisted by the media. He's probably a careerist. who has been grandstanding, and media is assisting him in that he is being disingenuous in bringing up genuine issues of corruption and shenanigans within the criminal justice system. But on the back of it, he is really also strategically positioning himself in terms of the succession for the post of National Commissioner.
What are the key contesting narratives about this story that the public should be aware of, and who is driving them?
You may have been aware that General Mkhwanazi is engaged in litigation. He is suing for 5 million. Paul O'Sullivan is counter-suing for 10 million. When you look at narratives as propagated by Paul O'Sullivan, is the fact that General Mkhwanazi would have bought some company from some criminal and so forth. I think we are well aware of those allegations, or rather the lawsuit that is brought up by Paul O'Sullivan. And this is one character amongst many who is also driving narratives around General Mkhwanazi. But the difference between Paul O'Sullivan and General Mkhwanazi is that General Mkhwanazi went on national television and made scathing allegations. Now, some of those allegations, they're beginning to be substantiated. We are getting witnesses who are showing us evidence. As far as somebody like Paul O'Sullivan goes, the matter is yet to go to court, and we are yet to hear what evidence he has. I would love to see a situation where Paul O'Sullivan goes to the Nhlanhla Commission and say, I've made these allegations against General Mkhwanazi. Here is my evidence, so that he can also be taken to task if there is evidence of wrongdoing. Then you will have other individuals within the social media space who will then write up things positive about General Mkhwanazi as though they are paid to become influencers, without actually knowing that the SAPS has got a policy on social media that prohibits serving members to have that kind of presence. And that will actually require of General Mkhwanazi to come and answer to say, no, it wasn't me, I don't know who those people are. But there are also within the social media space individuals who will then go out and attack, not only within the social media space, but on national TV, on different news platforms. You have heard about the story with Calvin Rafadi, fellow who has now resigned from UJ because of what he has been saying, and then coupled with his association with Ket Madlala. So you have all these type of individuals within the social media space, within the mainstream media, even within the broader print and online media. There will be individuals who will drive all these narratives. On the negative side, you will find people saying General Mkhwanazi is out of control and General Fanny Masemola is unable to control him. He gives him a free role. If you're going to make that kind of statement, you need to substantiate.
What aspects of the story are underreported, and why do you think these are important?
The first one would have been what the relationship between the National Commissioner and the Minister of Police is, or how has it been? Has it been cordial? Has there been mistrust? Because what we see is obviously lack of consultations. And that, I think, is an area that has been neglected. And that is why we are at a point where we are at today, because had the relationship between the Minister of Police and the National Commissioner been reported on, like with the previous ministers, with Ketla Sithole, you would have seen Minister Cele always close to the National Commissioner, Ketla Sithole, and always doing joint briefings. That needs to be worked on. And I think it's kind of difficult to actually report on that. And also, the second issue that has not been adequately covered is the issue of lifestyle audits amongst the top brass of the police, including the politicians. I don't see investigative journalism saying General so-and-so is living a life of opulence that is outside of his means. You would have heard in the Nhlanhla Commission the evidence led by witness A to say there is this warrant officer from Bremley who is actually owning a Mercedes-Benz Viano. Now that's a 2.2 million rand automobile. That's the price tag. I don't even think on a national commissioner's salary in terms of installment or vehicle financing, the national commissioner can get approval on that. So the lifestyle audits is something that media has not followed around, whether in the political cycles or within our law enforcement agencies.
How are journalists handling the technical aspects of policing? And do you think that the nuances are properly discussed?
I really think journalists are doing fairly well in terms of handling this. The reason why I'm saying this, I think the entire media space, I'm talking about television, radio, including print and online, is really abuzz with various experts to give analysis and commentary on an array of disciplines. For example, I see some journalists would ask an expert to say, when they say ultra vires, could you please explain that to our viewers or to the listeners? It's a very good approach that they have adopted in terms of using experts in various fields. In terms of the evidence that is being provided, I also find that the police are not being very technical. Even the Nhlanhla Commission, for example, you would hear them referring to a witness as witness A or witness B, as opposed to police lingo, which would have said witness Alpha or witness Bravo, or referring to a black male as a Bravo male. And I think they sort of like toning down on that in terms of the evidence to simplify the evidence, taking into account that the commissioners and viewers or listeners out there may not necessarily be privy to the type of jargon or terminology that is used in the police. So there is not much of a challenge in that context, because I find that the type of language used is very simplified.
Do you believe the media has adequately positioned the top cop, this is now General Mkhwanazi, as a whistleblower?
Does the media work for General Mkhwanazi? I preface my answer with a question. The role of the media is not to position General Mkhwanazi as a whistleblower. General Mkhwanazi has gone out and did what he thought was best for South Africa and the South African Police Service, and media has just fulfilled its role in terms of promoting transparency and accountability and a spotlight on these inherent weaknesses within the criminal justice system. I don't think media went out there to purposely position General Mkhwanazi as a whistleblower. He went out there, he did the right thing. Media went out there, did the right thing, and reported honestly on what General Mkhwanazi had to say. Otherwise, if media did not want to give General Mkhwanazi a hearing, they wouldn't have honored his media briefing. And equally, if they did not want those that are implicated in the allegations to be heard, they wouldn't have covered the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee or the Nhlanhla Commission. But South Africa owes gratitude to people who will come out and give us an expose on the road, because not everybody can do that. By the way, the kind of move that General Mkhwanazi embarked on is not only life-threatening, but it can be a career-ending move, because even politicians have their own interests and they peddle their own ideas around what is happening.
What is your view of the coverage of the main investigations? Do you feel that it has taken on an entertainment tone, or is it being treated with sufficient seriousness?
No, the entertainment is only happening within the social media space, because the character of social media is that of sensationalizing, and to some people it becomes a joke. You would have seen some of these TikTok videos that ridicule certain characters, and so the sensationalization happens there. But with regard to mainstream media, there is a certain awareness that this is a matter of national importance, and this is some serious work. This requires serious journalism, and therefore even the broadcasting side should actually align. You'll recall that News 24 at some stage wanted to take the Nhlanhla Commission to court in terms of the in-camera testimonies. Sanity prevailed, people sat down, they realized how important this is, and there is no need to be pulling each other from pillar to post through using the courts of law, and said, okay, we are prepared to accept this and concede to this. They acknowledge the importance of protecting the identities of the witnesses.
How do you interpret the "there is nothing new in what we are hearing" narrative in terms of public morale?
And let's give that a bit of a historical background. We come from the apartheid era. No confidence whatsoever in the police, particularly within the black communities. Some level of work was done around the mid-90s, 95, 96, to try and change the image of the police, but it wasn't effective. The police were told to be friendlier to the people, wave to the people and smile, and not give an intimidating demeanor or posture. Then they were called the Green and Wave Squad, and we went throughout the 3 decades of democracy with the police still misbehaving, still treating other sections of society badly. It's a racially biased approach that we have with the police. You would have seen all the shenanigans that happened during lockdown, and you can immediately tell that, okay, there is a problem of racial bias here. So confidence in the police is fluctuating, but as it goes up and down, the graph is more on the dwindling side. It continues to dwindle. So it is in that context that it is nothing new. There is a lot of people out there that have lost confidence in the police. You can phone the 10111 emergency center right now. You will be lucky if that telephone call is picked up within the set time. Then there is this issues of corruption. There is this issues of feet dragging with investigations. There is this ill-mannered police officials. That is the context of it's nothing new. But when you look at the bravery of General Mkhwanazi and a few other police officials like witness A and B to come out and speak against their superiors, you begin to say, hang on, here is an opportunity to flush the system and clean it and start afresh and come up with a credible and reputable criminal justice system. It is important not to become pessimist and say, no, it's nothing new. That's on the side of pessimism. I'm very much optimistic, irrespective of how people may feel about the President of the Republic, that is Cyril Ramaphosa. We are grateful that he saw the need to establish this Nhlanhla Commission so that we can take a deep nose dive. We've been doing things cosmetically when it comes to the criminal justice system, and now is really the time. Of course, we can never uproot the rot completely, but at the very least, we can keep it at a bare minimum and keep it in such a way that those that attempt to get involved with criminal characters, they're exposed very quickly and are processed into the criminal justice system very quickly, so that serves as a deterrence.
What would you like to see reporters and commentators do as this story develops and eventually fades from the headlines?
I would like to see reporters and journalists continuing to hold the police, the prosecutions, the courts, the prison services accountable. I would like to see investigative journalism become a norm and become formalized. Over and above all, I would like for the journalistic community to become the mouthpiece for the community. Get to the granular level. Speak on behalf of one family that has faced injustice by the police, by the courts, by the prosecutions, or by the prison authorities. Write their stories, publish them, take them out there, confront the accounting officers within those departments and say, what are you doing about this? Why are you not treating this matter with agency?
In the archives with JB.
Hi, it's JB here, and once again, we're going to rummage around in the archives of people's stories. You see, I think history is simply a collection of stories. Stories of people like you and me who, for better or worse, did things we can learn from. Who knows, maybe one day it'll be you. Anyone who knows me knows I ask a lot of questions, and I'm pretty picky about the answers I get. As we search these archives together, I'll share my questions, some of the answers I find, and most importantly, I hope our journey leaves you with questions of your own. It might sound funny, but when I started tracing the history of police, the first thing that came to mind are the nicknames. The Popo, Rozzers, Fuzz, Boys in Blue, Bobbies, Cops, and in Joburg they say Amachata. I came across this pretty cool YouTube channel called Name Explain, where this guy from the UK talks about all things names, including police nicknames. He says the term Popo came from Southern California police officers who would cycle around in pairs with the initials PO for police officer printed on their shirts. So, Popo. I don't know if it's true, but it is fun. Nicknames aside, where does the actual word police come from? I used Gemini for this one, but I checked other sources too, just to be sure. The word Popo comes from Middle French, police, meaning public order or administration. That came from Latin politia, civil administration, which ultimately traces back to the Greek polis, city, and politeia, meaning citizenship or government. Over time, it shifted to mean the civil force responsible for maintaining public order. Public order, civil force. Who are these people in different historical contexts? Let's use this as our starting point. Hey Google, who were the first police officers in history? Right away, things get messy. I find quite literally there's a first for everything. And when I trace the history of police, I actually find two distinct timelines. One runs from ancient Babylon through the Roman Empire to England. That's the Western one. The other, in places like China, developed independently, shaped by different cultures and philosophical ideas. Since I'm in South Africa, a country heavily influenced by British governance, I'll follow the Western timeline. This doesn't stop me from learning about the other one in my own time. AI tells me a modern organized police force, civilian officers like the London Bobbies founded by Sir Robert Peel in 1929 is often seen as a starting point. But policing existed long before that. The Romans under Emperor Augustus around 7 BC had a well-organized force. And even earlier civilizations like the Sumerians and Egyptians had public order systems too. There's that public order again. The Sumerians, remember them from our literacy archive back in September 2021? Now that's scary. Between 2100 and 2050 BC, the Sumerian king Ur-Nammu created what's believed to be the world's oldest surviving law code. Except for capital punishment, the focus was mostly on monetary fines, quite progressive for the time. The king wanted his subjects to see themselves as one big family, and their punishments akin to breaking house rules. You can read about it on the World History Encyclopedia website. Notice here I asked Google about policemen. AI references Sumeria and Egyptians as having public order systems. A subtle shift in phrasing, but it's important. If I dig deeper, can I find something about these people who enforced the laws? The American Society of Overseas Research has an article about policemen in 1st millennium BC Babylonia. I couldn't find one specifically on Sumerian times, but this article mentions tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets, the same writing system used by the Sumerians, so we're close. In Neo-Babylonian times, around 626 BC to 539 BC, there were officials called pakadus, low-level policemen responsible for investigating crimes, making arrests, and handling local policing duties in both cities and rural areas. Despite their modest status, they played a key role in temple court decisions as well. Before them, such duties were handled by military or on an ad hoc basis. So why not call the pakadus the first policemen? Well, every civilization seems to have its own version. Law and order looks different depending upon a society's values. Let's take the Romans. According to Wikipedia, 27 BC to AD 14, Emperor Augustus reformed taxation, built roads, established a courier system, created a standing army, formed the Praetorian Guard, and, crucially, founded official police and firefighting services. Could he have created a more structured public order system than our earlier findings, simply because society was becoming more complex? It's a thought. Later, in 1611, the High Constables of Edinburgh were formed, often credited as the first legal established police force. Half merchants and half craftsmen, they enforced curfews, weapons laws, and theft regulation. Mostly part-time, they also enforced ceremonial duties. That, too, is according to Wikipedia. These guys sounded more like the pakadus, but Edinburgh wasn't exactly Rome. Before Augustus, there wasn't really a concept of public protection. He created something resembling the 18th century London bobbies. As Rome grew to nearly 1 million people, he divided it into 14 wards, each guarded by 7 squads of 1,000 men called vigils, night watchmen and firemen who also handled policing. And just like the pakadus before them, they kept the peace. Then, in 1829, Sir Robert Peel established the London Metropolitan Police, the first official police force with civilian officers. It started with 1,000 men divided into 6 divisions headquartered in Scotland. These bobbies sound a lot like the Roman vigils, but they became the blueprint for modern policing, uniformed, paid, and accountable to the public. Sir Bob might have been getting a little too much credit, or was he just learning from the past, too? All this talk about public order sounds noble in theory, but in practice, especially in South Africa, the story gets complicated. When the Dutch settlers arrived, policing took on a paramilitary role. I believe some or other podcaster mentioned this on News 24.
Due to the institution's history dating as far back as the pre-1994 era, when the institution operated as a paramilitary force. After the invasion of South Africa in 1652, the settlers established an institution known as the Dutch Watch. It later changed to the Cape Constabulary, which then became the Cape Town Police Force. The name changes and reconceptualizations were as a result of power being ceded to different colonial governments from the mid-1600s to the latter part of the 18th century.
Moving right along. Their version of public order was about protecting the commercial interest of the Dutch East India Company, and later, the British Empire, both of whom used the Cape of Good Hope as a strategic port and a place to extract resources. The Union of South Africa, and later the apartheid government, carried that tradition forward, refining it into a system designed to control and divide. Police forces were established in so-called homelands to manage different ethnic groups separately. Today, the South African Police Service, yes, service, according to the Constitution of the Republic, not force, says that it exists to advance human rights and protect all citizens. But is it really doing that? Consider the 2012 Marikana massacre. Civil force, police service, public order, these terms are as varied as the cultures they represent. And it matters. From Sumar to Rome, London to South Africa, the name police has been given to those meant to serve. But who are they serving? Maybe it's not coincidence that the word force is more commonly used. Until our next time in the archives, remember, the story is as much in the wording as it is in the words. Words.
Beneath the headlines.
Now that we've heard some archival narrator excavating past information, shall we deal with the present? For this episode's text analysis, we are joined by Jackie Imas and Sboniso Nyide, good friends of the show. Yes, such is life, good people. You think you have friends until you realize it's something else that draws them in. But let's keep it moving. This is not an anti-agony segment. These are sharp, well-educated individuals with careers in communications and in monitoring and evaluation, respectively. My favorite part of this analysis is that though both are deeply analytical and observant, they come from very different worlds. In fact, they've never met, and their discussion points were recorded independently. So, let's look at a piece written by legal journalist Karyn Maughn and Bernadette Wicks of News 24. The article is headlined, "Mkhwanazi makes sweeping accusations of criminal capture, but where's the evidence?" They compiled the story after General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi gave evidence in chief at what's now referred to as the Madlanga Commission.
So in the headline, there are two phrases that stand out. The first one is sweeping accusations, and the second one is where is the evidence? Because they do more than describe. They sort of prescribe how one should feel, because it, in a way, it positions Mkhwanazi's claims as grand, claims that are unsubstantiated, and it sort of invites me to skepticism.
Okay, that's Sboniso digging right in.
So basically they're undermining this person because they're already making me think whatever he's saying is not really worth the paper it's printed on, because they're saying there's no evidence or questioning where the evidence is.
And that's Jackie concurring with Sboniso's point, especially regarding the last phrase of the headline, which essentially is asking for the receipts. Maughn and Wicks use a couple of devices to create the impression both our analysts picked up on. The word sweeping is hyperbolic, and the final phrase, introduced by the conjunction but, forms a rhetorical question. The headline is highly charged, using loaded language to stir emotion in the reader. And oh my, it certainly managed to do that on social media. It drew the ire of General Mkhwanazi's supporters and sparked scrutiny from several high-followed accounts. The comment section lit up with thousands of engagements.
The crazy thing is because we read so many of these things, there's an argument, I'm telling you, there's an argument that can say, no, but this is normal journalistic lens. This is what headlines do. They grab your attention, they want a reaction, they want you to be emotive. And when you look at it in that way, you almost want to say, yeah, well, this is objective and this headline is more focused on verification. But from a language perspective, it quietly sets the tone for disbelief. That here's Mkhwanazi who's making sweeping accusations, and this ends with the question of where is the evidence? The headline doesn't just ask, it doubts.
While I agree with Sboniso, Jackie pointed out how targeted and specific the headline is by drawing my attention to a phrase that's familiar to South Africans but foreign to her.
He's saying that the various institutions of government have been captured by criminals, or their workings have been captured by criminals. But when I read it initially, that isn't a phrase that I've come across. If someone was taken hostage, you could say, well, they've been captured by a criminal. That might be an instance of criminal capture, but I haven't come across the notion of criminal capture as applied to the workings of government. I would say it's South African jargon that you probably don't even think twice about.
I wonder if that was done unconsciously by the authors. Also, how many readers might have had a similar thought, given that most people only read the headline and perhaps a few lines of an article. Continuing on this point about reader engagement, with the top part of news stories, I was curious about whether the photo used by News 24 reinforced the headline in any way.
So basically, there's one person who's vaguely central in the picture, who I presume is the police commissioner. And then there's the back of someone else's head. They look quite close. They could be in a diner, sort of just looking across the table. I mean, they're obviously not. And it almost looks like he's being interrogated.
Because the setting in the photo, it's a formal setting, but it's also intimate because he and the person whose face we don't see, they're standing quite close. And the picture captured a moment of interaction rather than just a posed portrait. Because interestingly, Mkhwanazi in that image is not wearing the uniform that he was wearing on the day of the press briefing. He's wearing like a navy blue suit, white formal shirt and a black tie, and he's cut his hair. And is reacting to someone by the looks of things. I don't know if I want to read further into that and whatnot.
Is it a conversation or is he being questioned that you infer based on what you've just described?
Definitely the latter. By virtue of his facial expression, we're almost wondering as to, is he being defensive? Is he being flippant to what is being said to him? Because the headline has already primed me.
These observations intrigued me. The publication could have used a photograph of General Mkhwanazi taking the oath. That's common practice. Or an image of his arrival at the commission precinct. So why not? Is it that such images might evoke determination, honesty, or composure? If you've been following proceedings, you'll remember the moment when General Mkhwanazi put people at ease after a loud bang startled the room.
Someone from... No, you are safe, Commissioner.
Apologies, Chair.
But those are the ifs and buts. I'm sure News 24 would respond, "It's our prerogative," or claim there was no other suitable image. However, there are two additional points worth considering about this chosen photo. The first ties in with what Sboniso mentioned. The authors and editors didn't use an image of the general in camouflage. That's interesting, because the story's lead references a moment when he was dressed that way. And that was to send a message, as the general said during his testimony. The opening line reads, "In July, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi claimed in an explosive media conference that the country's justice system had been infiltrated by organized crime." To reinforce this headline, the lead could have drawn from the commission context rather than the earlier media conference. It makes me wonder if this contrast was deliberate, to suggest that the general offered no real evidence before the commission. Jackie picks up on the second point about how the photo was captioned.
I mean, it doesn't really explain the headline. And in actual fact, it almost contradicts the headline to me, because it's saying that in his testimony, he's saying that about 18 criminal cases had been withdrawn against this tenderpreneur. To me, that sort of sounds like evidence. I mean, can't you prove that if 18 criminal cases have been withdrawn? I mean, isn't that a non-controversial statement?
And Sboniso finds the caption out of sync with the photo itself.
The description of the image or the words under the image, they are not necessarily linked to the image. They don't give more context as to what was happening at this very moment when this picture was captured. Instead, it talks about the 18 cases around Ncala and all those other things. It was saying, according to Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, who has been testifying at the Madlanga Commission in Pretoria this week, about 18 criminal cases in Gauteng had been withdrawn against controversial tenderpreneur Vusumuzi Ncala. Then it credits the person who took the picture.
Reflecting further, he adds,
"It's possible that another person can see that this photo humanizes Mkhwanazi. He's navigating a live moment. He's reacting, he's reflecting, he's engaging. They may also perceive Mkhwanazi as thoughtful, as engaged, as subtly confident, because he's facing someone and his face is reacting to whatever that person is saying or whatever that person is not saying. And the other relational cues from the picture, because now there's two figures in the picture, and with the other person being partially visible, one could say it reinforces the institutional and interpersonal tensions that are there in the Madlanga Commission room where all this is happening. He looks professional in the picture, and I don't know whether it's because we naturally associate being dressed informally as professional or what, but while he's professional, he's still in a reactive posture, which can possibly also lend the mind of a reader as, okay, Mkhwanazi's authority is still contested in this picture. He's engaged, but he's under scrutiny.
Ultimately, that's the strangeness of this image. Not the general's dress code, but the posture and how the figures in it should be interpreted. Jackie elaborates.
So the photo makes it look as though this man is under investigation, whereas actually he is trying to say this is what should be being investigated. The photo manages to flip the reality. I do think it's quite an odd picture. He's quite small in the picture, slightly to the left. There's quite a lot of surround to the picture, which is blurry and meaningless. So you've got this blurry background, something that looks like it might be on a big screen. And then in front, you've got just the back of this person's head, who looks like he's interrogating this man.
Given these takes about the top end of this article's inverted pyramid, Jackie and Sboniso read through the rest of the article to examine how subliminal cues and explicit language drive the author's narrative.
So they use a lot of words like contends, he maintains, according to, which is fair enough because as a reporter, you're reporting his speech, you're not saying it's right or wrong, and therefore you can't use his words as fact. But to some extent, I think they go over the top. For example, at one stage, they say that he has sought to suggest. I mean, you really don't need to use has sought to, because suggest is not saying that it is factual. He's suggesting. But by saying he has sought to suggest, you're making more explicit that you're casting doubt on his testimony. So all the way through this article, there seems to be a kind of running thread that, well, he says this, but A, there's no evidence, and B, this is all from his perspective, and we shouldn't take this as fact. I find that this article is written in a way specifically to discredit him. There are some things here that I would have thought could be fact-checked. So, for example, there's a phrase that says that the police commissioner maintained that the PKTT was unmatched in its detection and conviction rates. They've used the word maintained there as if this is from his perception and that he's saying that, but it's neither true or false. Surely you can look at the evidence of the PKTT's detection and conviction rates. I mean, that must exist. Can you not fact check that?
There are parts in the article where they're quoting other institutions that Mkhwanazi would have made allegations against. Phrases like outrageous and ridiculous, no evidence, speculation, claimed. I don't know how many times I read claimed or makes claim in that article. Like, there's just that emphasis of made claims, according to Mkhwanazi, suggests. There's even a part that was saying he took aim. And I'm like, but why would you write in this way? The difference is when it quotes the phrases like outrageous and ridiculous, it doesn't lead them with this organization made claims that Mkhwanazi's allegations were outrageous and ridiculous, but it speaks them as though this is from an authority figure. Like, this organization stated this, like, this is a fact, you must believe it, that these claims are outrageous.
The state bodies Sboniso mentions are positioned strategically. These, amongst others, include an investigative arm of the National Prosecuting Authority and 2 individuals identified merely as members of parliament. And oh yes, just in case you're wondering, the word claim appears at least 5 times in the article, each time subtly undercutting the general's statements.
Explicitly, the article says that Mkhwanazi is making bold claims about criminal capture, and we as journalists of News 24 are rightfully demanding evidence. We see the claims that he's making, but journalistically, we have a right to demand evidence to support these bold claims. Implicitly, it constructs him as an unreliable lone voice whose seriousness is undermined by what I might call a tone of disbelief. Because it's almost as the story is saying, we are protecting the truth, we are protecting the facts. That's why, as we give audience to Mkhwanazi's allegations, we hold this question of where is the truth to this? Where are the facts of what is being claimed here? And what takes that further is that Mkhwanazi is not presented as an institutional actor with decades of experience at the highest level of South African police services. But it's more like he's just a man that is ranting at the gates of rationality. He offers nothing except allegations. And I think that's what becomes dangerous about tone. Tone can sound objective while still performing exclusion. And Mkhwanazi here he comes across as a character that is to be excluded. We shouldn't think of him as the person that he is, with the career and the credibility that he has as an expert in crime fighting.
What Sboniso highlights here is crucial. The authors create contrasts, framing representatives from parties like the Democratic Alliance and the National Coloured Congress as neutral parliamentarians, implying institutional credibility. Meanwhile, General Mkhwanazi is portrayed as a lone wolf, despite his backing within the SAPS. Furthermore, dismissive remarks about him are accepted without question, yet his statements face intense scrutiny, even when backed by facts or evidence. As Jackie points out, the article itself mentioned substantive WhatsApp evidence and other irrefutable facts.
It talks about, while two of these people will definitely need to explain what informed their decision to disband the PKTT. Well, clearly the PKTT has been disbanded earlier and sent its dockets to the police head office in Pretoria. So that sounds like evidence to me. There were a number of sentences that directly contradict the headline and specifically talk about producing evidence and things that have happened which do support what he's saying.
Are we being gaslit here? If not, we're certainly being disadvantaged as readers. The volume on the aspersions is turned way up, while the quiet truths slip by unnoticed. When articles understate the gravity of General Mkhwanazi's allegations or his record, that's a deliberate reporting technique, as Sboniso argues.
Silence in the space of articles and media, it's never empty. It's an editorial decision. And that editorial decision is focused on achieving a certain kind of reaction or painting a kind of a picture containing who and how we relate to the story and the facts that would have happened around the story. And it's almost as if by leaving that out in the story, I as a reader am only supposed to see a spectacle. I'm supposed to see Mkhwanazi as this officer who just wants drama and is making sweeping allegations with no backup or evidence, as opposed to seeing him as a seasoned officer.
As I've said before, this article sparked huge controversy on social media. This led me to ask Jackie and Sboniso, who are the ideal and resistant readers here? Who embraces the narrative and who resists it? Here's Jackie on the ideal reader.
Well, it strikes me that it's written for people who are sympathetic to the government and want to maintain the status quo.
And on the resistant reader?
People who want to see a more balanced and fair report. It's all very well to dismiss someone's testimony because you don't agree with it, but it would be a stronger piece if they actually interrogated some of these claims rather than just saying there's no evidence.
Interestingly, she makes this inference dispassionately, as someone who approached the text cold. And no, I won't make any corny, cold UK puns. Meanwhile, Sboniso, who's deeply familiar with South African politics, brings that insight to his response.
News 24 appeals to the so-called middle class in South Africa, the media literate, and those who, quote-unquote, value fact-checking, whilst the resistant readers would be those who are aware of racialized and institutional bias, who recognize how framing and omission can delegitimize a black person's voice or a black professional's voice, or even elevate a white person's voice or an institution's voice.
So why do you say this in respect to this article?
You see, now I'm confronted with, am I middle class? Am I the ideal reader for this piece? Or am I a resistant reader for this piece?
It's possible to be both, by the way.
It's possible to be both. Does that depend on whether you like the subject or not?
You may be the ideal reader from the author's perspective, but in terms of how you receive it, you are oppositional to the text.
It's almost impossible to respond to this question without appreciating the historical context of South Africa. And maybe I'm oversimplifying it when I say black versus white. The ideal reader here is a person who readily accepts that black is suspicious and white is authority. The article is written by two white people, and they are writing about this black man. It sort of leans into those historical contexts where the society we live in, as a black man, I'm always a suspect. I always have to prove myself and explain myself. Not explain for sake of clarity, but explain to satisfy the white needs or the white understanding of what is it that I'm dealing with or what is it that I'm trying to say.
Aren't you just being a victim?
No, I'm not a victim. It's the system. The system is like that.
Maybe you just need to be bold and...
When you're bold...
Stop thinking of yourself as a victim.
It's not even at an individual level. It's not even at an individual level. As a class of black men, that's how my experience, or that's how our experience. I'm not an appointed spokesperson for all black men in South Africa, but looking at how reports are framed around black men, it lends itself to that.
Now that we understand the narrative, what might the authors have done differently, particularly with that headline?
So rather than damning his testimony, I think the headline would be more interesting if it asserted that as a result of his testimony, there are people who do have a case to explain why certain things happened. And why was the PKTT disbanded? And why was this businessman alerted about the disbanding of the PKTT by WhatsApp message? So I do think there are some valid questions based on my reading of this article that a good news organisation should be asking rather than casting doubt.
Yeah, like the conspicuously unmentioned leave of absence Minister Senzo Mkhunu, who is friendly with questionable characters. Where's his name in this headline, given his higher executive authority and accountability compared to General Mkhwanazi? Perhaps, though, it's not about including his name, but about pursuing the narrative with more balance and consideration.
I think the headline could retain its call for evidence. It's important, I don't dispute that. But it can still call for evidence, but remove its preemptive skepticism. I could possibly change the headline to read Mkhwanazi alleges criminal capture and commission to assess claims, because that's where this is happening. Because in that framing, I think you preserve accountability without framing disbelief. Because really at the heart of my issue with the article is how it frames me to disbelieve whatever it is I'm gonna read next. And also the use of words like sweeping. Why not use serious? Because such things, I believe, they shift the story's tone from reckless to responsible. Say, here we have a responsible police officer who's risking his job, who's risking his career progression for the sake of truth, or to stand up against the terrorists that are seeking to capture the criminal intelligence of the country. Headlines are powerful. They set our expectations as audiences before even the lead is read. the way language has been used here, it really distributes doubt and seriousness.
The conclusion. Post-analysis and commentary with Melusi Ncala.
I have so many thoughts about the latest public saga unfolding around the police in South Africa. It's been playing out in spectacular fashion, and while I find myself agreeing with much of what's being said, I also catch myself pulling back. Maybe because this story already feels overexposed. My emotions keep me in two minds. On the one hand, I understand the public's fatigue and the blasé attitude toward policing in this country. On the other, when I look at the chaos, I can't help but think, finally. Why? Because as an anti-corruption activist, I've written about this rot for years. I've analyzed the data. I've listened to ordinary people lament the very same issues that General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is now exposing. In that sense, nothing here feels new. I already know how deep this decay runs. That said, there's something to be appreciated about General Mkhwanazi's frankness and boldness. It's refreshing, especially in a police service so steeped in cronyism and patronage, where corruption and criminality are often buried under the guise of classified information or hidden behind an us versus everybody attitude by those in blue. I think one reason the KZN Commissioner's actions have been so widely welcomed is that government, particularly under the Ramaphosa administration, has gaslit citizens for so long. We keep hearing about transparency, but it's always selective. Information about the president himself has been hidden away, just like the millions stuffed in his furniture. So when someone like General Mkhwanazi speaks plainly, people feel vindicated. They feel seen. His revelations confirm that they are not mad or misguided. And when you couple that with the public's lived experiences with policing, where good encounters are rare, the public's reactions make sense. But even so, we need to take a step back. Not necessarily for the same reasons as those who have ulterior motives, but to assess ourselves in this pivotal moment. Why are we consuming these revelations like a soap opera? Where is the organizing, the mobilizing, the civil action? Isn't this a moment to change the status quo without waiting for politicians to direct the play? Where is the initiative beyond refreshing our devices for the next episode of the saga or our favorite commentator's take, when deep down we already know what's wrong? And for those who have chosen to step back, how are you processing this moment? What does real change look like for you? Because here's the thing. Whatever hero status we give General Mkhwanazi, we need to think carefully about what he represents. This is a man driven by virtue. Yes, but still a faithful servant of the system. Is he trying to revolutionize policing? I don't think so. He's trying to make the same system work better. The same system many of us critique as inherently prejudicial, cruel, and inhumane. It's an institution that maintains an established order we've grown comfortable with, despite our awareness of its deep structural flaws.
Impressed ukuthi khona iphoyisa elisathembekile these days. Yasho machets yasho biyanazi ile sasikhathi lesana bathi ngesilungu X marks the spot mathi nasoyishintsha DJ soyivurvale into lena ngithola sishaya ngamachibili khankha ngiyangithola sithini MK marks the spot. Danko.
Hello. Yes, I heard it. Yes? But it's not saying anything about the operation. What? It's...
Thank you for joining us for this edition of The Thinking Behind It All. It was hosted and executive produced by me, Melusi Ncala. Assistance production by JB and Naledi Ncala. Field reporting is by Mathibedi Mosiroe. Voiceover by Julie Begun. Contributions by Dr. Matlala. And text analysis by Jackie Imas, as well as Sboniso Nyide. The sound engineering and music is by DJ Darkness. Please tell your friends, lovers, and family about the podcast. Until next time, think before you speak. Sharp, 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 sharp.